Good Monday evening, everybody. Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich here with live weather impact for April 20th, 2026. The story is the cool down. It's still dry. Well, obviously, we'll talk a lot about that, but we actually got back to more typical early April type weather, even though it's later in the month. This is the kind of weather we should have had probably a couple weeks ago. So tonight, clear, chilly. There will be frost. I saw some patchy frost this morning, definitely more widespread tonight. Tomorrow, though, another beautiful day. These afternoons have been gorgeous. This is kind of what April's known for. I like to call it San Diego weather because you get these cool mornings, but the afternoons are just delightful. You can wear long sleeves and have pants on and sit in the sun and not be sweating, and be in the shade and not be freezing either. So it's kind of that perfect, happy medium, Goldilocks type weather, if you will. Looking ahead, though, the 80s are going to return pretty quickly, and even mid and upper 80s possible. And yes, I am talking rain chances. Don't get too excited. It's more just a chance. Tonight's a big night. 8 p.m. sunset, the first 8 p.m. sunset since August 25th, and we will not have another one until after August 25th this year. So the evenings will be nice and bright as we get these later sunsets all the way through the end of June. June 28th, our latest sunset at 8:42 p.m. Radar, there's actually something showing up on the radar, though honestly, I don't know how much of this actually was making it to the ground. I did not see a lot of reports. I'm sure there are a few raindrops here and there, but these are kind of like typical for this kind of setup. It feels like a fall setup, honestly. Cold air aloft, kind of a warm day. You're starting to see a couple pop-up little showers, basically dark bottom cumulus clouds, we like to call them, and you can sometimes see a few sprinkles coming out of those. But overall, high pressure is building. In fact, it's going to get a lot colder tonight. We're still in the 70s. It's beautiful out there right now. We still got, 2+ hours, about an hour and a half till sunset. So, you still got plenty of time to get out there and enjoy it. But tonight, the perfect radiational cooling. Long wave radiation gets trapped in the ground during the day. That's what heats the air. At night, with no clouds or wind and dry air, all that radiation goes straight up, the ground cools off, and all that cold air settles near the ground, and you end up with really cold mornings, especially in the low-lying areas. That's why low-lying areas can be much colder than higher elevations. That thermal belt in the western part of the state will be much warmer than we will be down here in the Piedmont. For that reason, we do have a frost and freeze warning for some areas, but I will tell you, anybody in our area, please be ready for a frost tonight, even outside of these advisories, because everybody has that potential. I saw it this morning on my roof. It wasn't widespread, but we certainly had some around this morning, and tonight will likely be a couple degrees colder and longer. So overnight lows, I'm going 37 in Charlotte. Some areas could be closer to 40. Just depends on the winds and the clouds, but overall, I would expect patchy frost tomorrow. Absolutely picture perfect day. Temperatures back into the 70s. Kind of room temperature day, just going to be great. And it's been a rare stretch here. The last 2 days, below average temperatures, just a little bit below, but we had such a long stretch of above average. It did make this feel much colder than it actually was. There's that weak little front. That just reinforces the cold air tonight. But as soon as we get to Wednesday, winds shift to the south. We start seeing a warm up, and the 80s return very quickly. We're going to be back into the 80s. We're going to talk a lot about this coming up tonight at 7 o'clock, and make sure you stick around for our drought special. We are in a long-term drought. This is our rainfall departure for the last 12 months, only 2 months above average. We have been below average since last September. The drought really started last fall and has just gotten worse throughout the winter. And now this spring, it's really accelerating because things are trying to grow. We don't have rain. So speaking of that, it's not a ton of rain. I don't want you to think, okay, we're finally going to get some much-needed rain. This is more of a pattern shift. So we've got a front on Saturday. It looks really weak. Kind of looks like our front this past weekend. Maybe a few showers. I wouldn't get too excited. I'm more excited the fact that on Tuesday, another front arrives. So it's more about that pattern of fronts getting here, more so than the individual front bringing a ton of rain. That's what we want to see. That's a pattern we want. Every 2 or 3 days, a front getting in here or some kind of storm system. That's actually very promising that maybe the pattern is beginning to change. You'll see the 7-day rainfall forecast certainly doesn't show anything remotely close to wet, but we're starting to see some moisture building to our west. And like I said, the pattern is there. Speaking of that pattern, 6 to 10 days out, it gets warm. I don't think we're going to see anything but warm air overall, outside of these few cold snaps a day or two. But to me, the fact that we are starting to see the chance of above average rainfall, especially in that 6 to 10 day time frame, that's a signal that maybe we have a chance in May of getting some rain, because May is really our last hope until we get to summer for significant widespread rain. The reason I say that is in the summer you get scattered storms. You don't get cold fronts, low pressure systems, unless you get a tropical system of some kind during the summer, you're kind of just stuck with the hit or miss pop-up storm. So late April, early May might be our last chance to get substantial rain and maybe a pattern that could give us a little bit of a break from the drought. Certainly not going to end the drought, but maybe just knock an edge off of it before we get to summer. Now, your Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast, plenty of warmth. Mid and upper 80s return for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, even Saturday. But we got a rain chance Saturday, 50%. And then again on Tuesday. And again, I would not get too excited for the individual events. I'm more excited for the fact that we have a couple of chances within a few days of each other. Because honestly, that's a more normal pattern in the spring. Not going months without rain is every 2 or 3 days in the spring is seeing a cold front come in and at least a chance for pop-up storms. So that's a good sign. Even though temperatures kind of moderate a little bit next week, they're still going to be slightly above average. But overall, that's a much better pattern for April compared to what we've had for most of this month. And honestly, all of March, which has been crazy, crazy warm. So stick around. Coming up, we're going to talk with Alex Williams of WFMY. We'll talk about the forecast, the drought, and make sure you stick around for 7 to 8. We've got a full hour talking about the drought.
Weather Impact Live with Brad Panovich is sponsored by Moisture Lock, crawl space, basement, and foundation repair experts serving the Carolinas since 1988.
Tired of all this rain? Does your yard look like a swamp after it rains? Hi, I'm Greg Doggett with Moisture Lock, Charlotte's premier waterproofing and foundation repair company. The longer water sits, the softer soil will become. This can cause foundation issues. If you're having drainage issues, contact Moisture Lock. We'll get the water away from your home and out of your yard.
Moisture Lock, stabilize, enhance, protect.
Welcome back, everybody. We've got a three-headed monster today. I'm in the middle, though.
I look really short.
Yeah, we've got Alex Williams from WFMY and Brittany Van Voorhees here from WCNC joining us today on Live Weather Impact. And also coming up at 7 o'clock, Brittany and I will be here together talking about the drought more extendedly. But right now, we want to kind of focus on weather and a little bit of the drought ongoing right now. And I'll start with Alex, because Alex, I saw this when I got up this morning. I'm glad you brought this up. But you guys had another earthquake up there, the same spot. And I looked back, this is the 8th earthquake since April 5th in the Randleman area. What are folks saying about this up there? And did a lot of folks feel this morning?
Yeah, it is interesting. We kind of know they happen before the USGS lets us know, because we get a lot of feedback and calls from people in Randolph County. They're like, hey, the ground is shaking. We can feel it. And sure enough, we had another one this morning, magnitude 2.0. And it's interesting to note, so going back to your theory that we talked about from the Weather Impact Show a couple days ago about the reservoir-induced seismicity, I kind of looked into it. In Lake Randleman, the water levels haven't really dropped all that much or significantly. I still think it's fascinating that these are occurring right next to Lake Randleman. And then the other thing that might be causing it, just kind of digging in, is long-term drought depleting groundwater can actually cause fault lines to kind of shift a little bit. And that could be causing some of those as well. But it's fascinating that we've had that many earthquakes in just, what do you say, 5 weeks?
Give me a slide.
Yeah, it is really interesting. And, some of the research that I started reading up on from South Carolina, they call them microquakes because they're small. But the thing is, Alex, there's got to be an existing fault or fracture in the rock somewhere, which has probably always been there. But as you mentioned, if the groundwater below starts going down or surface water goes up or down, it can change the pressure on those rocks and cause that. So it'll be interesting. I'm kind of curious if, like, someone in the state seismology office will come and kind of do some investigation on that. But it is interesting. We'll see how long this goes, because 8 of them is a lot. They've all been relatively small. I think 2.4 has been the biggest one so far, maybe. So barely on that threshold where people kind of feel they're not damaging. I think people get really worried, Alex, when they, what's going on? And these are kind of normal. We've seen a couple of these across the Carolinas. This certainly isn't a sign of something bigger down the road. It probably is just something small, and it could be due to drought or water levels, or it could just be a regular earthquake storm. There's a lot of things we don't understand about some of these small faults that we have in the Carolinas.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what we're trying to do, is abate the fears of people, or kind of quiet them, of just saying these are not leading up to a massive earthquake that's going to happen. I just, like you said, I don't see that happening. You don't see that happening. Yeah. So we want to go ahead and squash those fears. We just need to figure out what's causing this. And I really do hope they send a seismologist here. We really do need some investigations going on.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if that little swarm, it is now, I would classify as an earthquake swarm, if it does continue. So let's talk about the weather, because I don't know about you, but it was pretty cold down this way this morning. We had patchy frost. We had a lot of 30s showing up. And maybe a side effect of the dry air, Alex. Brittany and I were talking about this. We talked about how dry air sometimes can overachieve the heat in the afternoon. Well, the opposite can happen at night with really dry air in place. You get a good radiational cooling night, you can really get some cold nights. And last night and tonight look equally as cold, with maybe the potential for frost. The one caveat would be maybe there's not enough moisture for frost because it is so dry, but it will be something to watch tonight. And it is a late frost by our standards, at least.
Yeah, and it's a late frost for us as well. We typically say tax day, right? People can plant. Yeah. Now we're after tax day, and here we are talking about frost and freeze warnings in effect for those northern North Carolina counties up into the mountains, and then frost advisory stretching down into central North Carolina. And so here we go. You just protect your plants tonight, and then we'll be on to hopefully business as usual as far as weather's concerned.
Yeah, but I'll be honest, the afternoons have been glorious. This is what I love about April. These afternoons, low to mid 70s, no humidity. This is why April's, and that's why when people I know people love heat. Hey guys, we get plenty of heat. We've got 4 months of summer here pretty much. Let us enjoy April for once without it being 90 degrees already like we had 2 days ago. It's like, we know the 90s are coming. We never lack heat here. It's nice to get some of this, what I call San Diego weather. It's like Goldilocks. It's like you can sit outside in the sun and not sweat, and be in the shade and not be frigid. That's a time of year I love. So this is why these afternoons are just absolutely glorious. So tomorrow looks equally as nice after that cold start, Alex. But obviously the talk this week is still about the drought. And while the drought monitor doesn't come out till Thursday, today was kind of a big day because a lot of our the voluntary water restrictions kind of went into effect today. You guys don't have as many up there as we do down here. But we started seeing the city of Charlotte institute theirs today. A lot of other municipalities, some have mandatory. And we actually went out to Union County, which has one of the worst situations right now because they have these 3 lakes that they rely on for drinking water, and they're all surface lakes. There's 3 of them. They're man-made, and you can see how low they are. This is their main water supply. It's all surface-based, so they got to require rainfall. And if you go back to the end of last year, I showed this graphic during my newscast. So I think it's always important for people to see like how long-term this drought's been ongoing. But we go back to September of last year for Charlotte. We've had below average rainfall basically for 8 straight months now. And so this has not been a short-term drought, Alex. This has been a long-term drought, which the thing about long-term droughts, it takes a long time to get out of them. So we have to see a significant pattern change start to evolve. And while I'm not super excited for the weekend front, I was more excited the fact that we have back-to-back fronts possibly coming down Saturday and again next Tuesday, which is showing signs that maybe the pattern is beginning to shift a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why I've got that rainfall outlook that all of us have been sharing, because it actually shows green for once, and maybe bringing some above average rainfall. But again, the dominant weather player over the last several weeks has been Bermuda High. It's been absolutely swatting away and squashing any rain chances that try to come to the Carolinas. Now with that influence not there, and seeing better moisture return with some of these systems, now we're going to start to increase hopefully the rain chances and get a decent amount of rain, because like you said, we're running out of time. The closer we get to summer, the more we get towards pop-up territory and less organized storm systems swinging through. So hopefully we can get some good beneficial rain over the next couple of weeks here as we end out April and go into May.
Yeah, so some of the drone footage you're looking at right now is from Union County, and I'll bring Brittany in because Brittany was out there today. And Brittany, you kind of saw this firsthand, and I know you showed me some of your pictures and videos, and it is kind of stunning to see how low that water is compared to where it normally is. What did they tell you out in Union County about, how dire the situation or how long they have before the water restrictions become more of a mandatory, and we're going to start fining people if they don't listen?
Yeah, it's going to be a few probably more weeks. They're trying to do everything, it seems like kind of a slow rollout. They wouldn't give specific, based on X, Y, Z. In 2 weeks it's going to be level 2, and 2 weeks after that it's going to be level 3. But I know privately in the Weather Center we talk about this pretty much every week, Brad. But, it's constant comparison to that 2007 to 2008 long-term drought. You and Larry, some of the only people who are still in our newsroom, who were there during that time. But you have a good perspective of it. And we talked about this a little bit, too. With those man-made lakes, it's really, really hard because they're rain-based only. So they don't really have, a Catawba water basin connection, that they can bring water in. There are some emergency situations where they can pull from other basins. Normally that requires putting some kind of, drain in. One thing that was really cool that back in 2007, NCDOT owned a local rock quarry that they were able to kind of hose in and get some of that surface water, test it before to help with some of the drinking water. But since then, the city of Monroe has purchased the quarry. So whereas back 20 years ago, they had to ask permission, now they don't have to. So they did say that would cause a better, option if they had to tap into that. So they have multiple backup plans. And so the good news is that because they've been through this before, they have multiple things that they know work, maybe a few things that they know don't work. One thing that I found to be more, I guess, piqued my interest when we were talking, and actually Chris Mulcahy brought this up as well 2 weeks ago when we were in one of our morning meetings for the news day, was that people on wells. Oftentimes we talk a lot about who's being impacted by the city of Monroe's water supply or who's being impacted by the Catawba River Basin here in Mecklenburg County. But people on wells are probably going to start to notice that drying up quicker, they were saying. And so if that's where you get your water from, that's something that you especially probably need to be keeping a very close eye on, the voluntary and mandatory water restrictions. And just, we say it all the time, but it's those little things that you can do to help lower your water turning off the faucet when you're brushing your teeth, trying to do mainly full loads of laundry, knowing that nowadays the devices that we have in our home, like the dishwashers and the, washers and dryers, are very efficient, and they back in the day, even when I was in college, my mom was like, wash your dishes yourself, you're going to use less water. And that's might have been the case at one point, but that's not the case now. So just those little things here and there. And car washes, things like that, go to one instead of doing it yourself at your house. We underestimate sometimes how much water we use. I also was thinking myself too, when I was cooking the other day, just like boiling some pasta, whether or not like I could use that same water to like make another meal, because I was doing some meal prep, like those little things. Even though they're small, like I think they add up. It's kind of like when we talk about the climate, change issues, like small things like recycling, it all adds up. So those were just some of the things that really stood out to me. And we're going to have a lot more information coming up in the drought special, but it was shocking how low the levels are compared to where they should be. I mean, they said that normally this time of year, it's recreation every single weekend. And you would think with a weekend like Saturday, where it's 90 degrees, people would be out on their boats. Yeah. That was not the case this weekend because all those lakes are closed. So.
Yeah. The well thing is interesting because the people with wells tend to be the last to notice, but then they're the last to recover too, because it takes a long time to recharge. I remember in 2007 and 2008, people were having to have their wells redug deeper because the water level had dropped so low into the ground that they had to dig them deeper to reach water. And they're usually the last ones. When everyone thinks we're out of a drought, the people with wells are like, hey, we haven't recharged the groundwater yet, and it takes a lot longer. So you do think about those people a lot. And, you made me think about some of the things I do. I've always done them, but I do it more so in these situations. Like anytime I have to empty water, people just throw it down the sink. Like I'll use the extra water in the house, and I'll take it out and water my plants with it instead of throwing it down the drain. If you're like got done doing something or washing something, gray water is, what people put in their sink. As long as it's not full of soap and chemicals, you can use that stuff to go water your flowers outside. It's a lot more efficient than just throwing it right down the drain. I've known people that have saved their gray water and they use it to flush their toilet because it saves them one flush. Some of the pictures we got today, and I got to give a big shout out to Brian, sent me these. He was out at McAlpine Creek Park. Wow. Now this is normally a pond, and he said the water was like 50 feet from where he was standing is normally where the shore is, and so this is fed by the McAlpine Creek. Now if the pond is this low, it kind of shows you how low the creek probably is because the creek's off in the distance there. But this is a sign of what we're seeing a lot across the area, Alex. And I think over the coming weeks, as we get closer to Memorial Day, and Brittany brought this up, people start getting out on boats and canoes, kayaks, paddleboards. They're going to start noticing it's going to be hard to have recreation on these waterways because there's just literally not water.
Yeah, and you're talking about obstacles that are appearing that wouldn't normally be a concern. And so now you're having to watch out for rocks and maybe driftwood that was buried before or something like that as you're water skiing or tubing or whatever, and you don't want to be running into that because now safety becomes an issue. And then I'm glad that Brittany brought up the wells because a lot of the farmers in Stokes County, they're trying to reapply to dig their wells deeper, dig new ones because the ground tables are so low, the water tables, that they can't pump that water up for their cattle. And so, I mean, we're already dealing with critically low groundwater as it is. So hopefully this change in the pattern will bring about some helpful and beneficial rainfall.
Yeah, so on the good news front, I mean, the drought's been bad, but there's a lake that's recovered dramatically, not from a drought, but from Hurricane Helene. They had a soft opening this weekend for Lake Lure, and I know the drought has actually caused them to have trouble filling it up as quickly as they wanted, but our Miles was out there today, was basically taking a look at that soft opening. I think the hard opening or the official opening is Memorial Day weekend, but he got a look at some of the water levels in the beaches after the lake has had their soft opening this weekend.
Well, this soft reopening is giving people their first real look at the lake since it was drained and damaged by Hurricane Helene. And while there's still some limitations, many say that they have been waiting months for this reopening, a sign of life returning to this community. For months, the shores of Lake Lure were quiet, the water levels down, access limited, and businesses left waiting. Now, that quiet is starting to break.
We're resilient, but I think today it's beyond that. It's coming coming back home.
The town now allowing limited access as crews continue to work to fully restore the area. Now, for people who call this place home, it's emotional.
It's a homecoming to see the lake like this, to hear the dogs and see them play in the water, to know the water is safe, to see the green, to see the trees. Yeah, it's peaceful.
People who live here say that what they're seeing now is more than just water returning. It's a community showing real resilience after months of uncertainty. And for local businesses like Lord, that resilience has been tested.
When those people aren't in town, we've had tremendous support from the full-time locals, tremendous support from the tourists that have come in.
While the recovery is far from over, many here say that they're taking this moment for what it is, a turning point.
I hope that people come and they see the lake and they talk to the people, they go into the shops, they look at the beauty, and they remember that promises come true. And we said we're going to be back, and we'll be back better.
And town officials, they are targeting having a full reopening of the lake by Memorial Day weekend. In Lake Laura, Miles Harris, WCNC Charlotte.
Yeah, I love seeing that, Alex. One of my favorite spots in all of North Carolina, Chimney Rock and Lake Laura. I spent a lot of time pre-Helene, so it's great to see that come back. So it's always nice to see some good news in the midst of the drought ongoing, that a lake is recovering over there in Lake Laura. And I hope they get a great summer season, because they've lost all last summer and then obviously all that loss from Helene. It's crazy to think we had a train go through the loops over there at Old Fort for the first time this weekend. It's crazy to think, Alex, all this stuff that's happened so far after Helene. It really shows the recovery has been a long haul for many folks.
It has indeed. So just great signs of recovery there from Helene that continue to build across Western North Carolina. And it's just wonderful to see Lake Laura softly reopened again.
Yeah, great to see.